Welcome to Living on the Edge. My name is Chip Ingram, and we are wrapping up a series on relationships. And we're going to talk about maybe the most important relationship that you don't want to deal with. You know, we all get ripped off. We've all been hurt. What do you do with the evil that is aimed at you? What do you do with that person that when their name comes to your mind, the stomach acid begins to churn in your stomach? What do you do with that unresolved bitterness and hurt? The revolutionary that changed the entire course of this planet, Jesus, said, love your enemies. I don't know about you, but I can't do that. We're going to learn from the Apostle Paul how to put that in practice in ways where literally good will overcome evil. Stay with me. You don't want to miss this one. It's hard to rejoice with those who rejoice when they wounded you, isn't it? And at times, it is unhealthy, unwise, and inappropriate. But do you understand what I'm saying here? Or weeping with those who weep. What do you do when there's a death of a parent, or a friend, or a child, the loss of a job, a demotion, a troubled teen, a troubled marriage, a divorce, like after the one you went through, it happens again? See, everything in you wants to say, right? You know, the guy was a bum, or the lady was a bum, it didn't work with me, he did this, they got what they deserved. Thank you, Lord. Now, you know what? Justice is up to God. But mercy triumphs over justice. God will bring about justice. You'll never get a raw deal. But the prohibition here is you trying to bring about the justice. And can you imagine if they were in an auto accident or had cancer? If out of the blue, that boss that ripped you off, dying of cancer, hardened, the cusser, the liar, the manipulator, if you walked through the hospital door, said, Bob, it's been a few years. I heard you had cancer. My wife and I have been praying for you a lot. And I know there's some stuff between us. I want you to know I've completely forgiven you. And I just wondered if I could take a minute and pray for you. That's what this is talking about. Maybe you cry with them. You listen to them. You send them a note. You see, identification is the door of love. You don't barge your way in, but you let them know the door is open. You're not pushy, you're not self-righteous, you're not overly religious, and this is what we're doing because it says I'm supposed to bless, and by the way, I am on the upper here, and you are on the lower, and I'm the spiritual, and you're the scum, and I'm going to bless you. Right? Now, you know something? It's so easy to do that, isn't it? In fact, look at the very last verse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. You know, the live in harmony, that's a nice translation. I like the literal words. Be of the same mind toward one another. In other words, hey, you know what? Not you're the high-minded and they're the low-minded. And I love the last line, don't be conceited. And this is a hard one. This has been very, very difficult and painful for me. When we're attacked, and some things, I mean, if it happened to you as a kid, I'm really trusting that you're going to take this through an overall biblical grid. If you were abused as a child or something like this, of course it doesn't apply there. These adult, how it all happened, 100% all them and 0% us. And we are the good person with the white hat that loves God, and they're the devil with the black hat. That's an arrogant assessment. That's an arrogant assessment. When he says, do not be conceited. Don't assume. Now, you know, often I've used this phrase in dealing with very difficult situations, especially ones that are unresolved, by using a phrase that goes something like this. I want to share with you my perspective of this situation, not to be confused with the truth or reality. I know I have a bias. I know there's part of this that it's jaded and I have denial and I'm a fallen person. But from my perspective, when you took that money and when you lied to me or, you know, a falsehood, misrepresentation, and then when you did this and this, I was deeply wounded and hurt. My perception is a great injustice has occurred. Do you understand the difference in that than you liar, and I'm the good guy, and you did this, and you did that, and, you know, I talked to all my friends, I'm a victim. Do you see what happened? See, I've really struggled, even in the notes, blessing people, forgiveness, identification. I use the word association because I wanted to keep it consistent with behavior, but I struggled. You might write the word right next to it, humility. Because really, you bless people, it's you long hours with God alone in difficult situations saying, I know this happened, I know it's unfair, and the big picture is bad. Okay, now, Father, could you show me my part in this if I have a part? What lesson to learn? What unintended thing or intended thing? What secret thing? What issue in my heart? What in any way could I have been a part of this situation? I want to get right with you. I want to make anything, and if it's 98% them, 2% me, I want to make the 2% right. Not that you blame, condemn, but you're open to hearing from God, because we tend to run very quickly to it's all of them and none of us. And so there's a positive command. That person, first you forgive them, choice. Then you identify, if possible and if safe. And then there's an association, there's a willingness that you're both human, you're both made in the image of God, that God is concerned. As I love, my wife read a quote somewhere, it says, God doesn't take sides. I love that. God doesn't take sides. God is just what's right. And we all have our perceptions. And He's sovereign, and He's control, and He will bring about what's right. Do you see how important faith is here? The issue of faith, you have to believe and know that He's really in control. And we're going to get to it in just a second. The reason it's so hard for me to do this first positive command is it feels like I'm letting them off the hook, and that's not fair, and they deserve ban because they did this to me, or they did it to my son, or they did it to my closest friend, or they did this to the church, or they did this to the company, and all the employees, and all the damage, and God, I can't. Yes, you can. By His power and strength and grace. Because here's the deal. Either you get to be God or God gets to be God. Your choice. And you can carry the weight and the energy and the desire and justice has got to happen. Or you can say, makes no sense. Jesus, I don't need an out-of-body experience. I need an in-a-body experience. I need the present living Jesus Spirit in me. Give me the grace to forgive, forgiving, forgiven. God, you actually want me to write them a note and let them know I bless them, I'm praying for them. Okay. You don't have to feel it. And that's not being hypocritical. Love, remember, is a choice, giving another person what they need the most when they deserve it the least at great personal cost. And I'm not talking about hypocrisy. I mean, it's a genuine act of you want to bless them. But here's where there's some refuge. The negative command is don't take your own revenge. And what He's going to teach us as He does this is why. He's going to teach in verses 17 and 18 that personal retaliation is a prohibited response for God's people. And you say, well, where do you get that? Look at verse 17. Do not repay evil for evil to anyone. Now, any questions? They hurt me, I want... Any questions? Do not. I mean, is this like vague? Do not repay evil for anyone. Now, notice the conditions here. It says, be careful. Literally, it's take thought. It's the idea of take advanced thought for what is right in the eyes of everyone. In other words, it's this sense of what's helped me the most, even with the situation I had recently, when I was able to take thought. And I thought of this man's background, and I thought of his history spiritually, and I thought of where he's at in his life, and I thought of some major damage that's occurred to him recently. When I could take thought of what's right in his eyes, a lot of what he did to me made sense to him. Did it make it right? No. But boy, did it help me. You know, it's kind of that classic walk in someone else's moccasins or something like that. Put yourself in their shoes. It's so hard to do when we don't have any humility because we're the right and they're the wrong. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't gloss over it. But if you can take thought, what would make a person do that in that situation? Everyone behaves in a way that makes sense to them. And most of the people that really wounded you, I mean, I will tell you, they could be interviewed right now, unless it's just so black and white. No, I really didn't do that. No, they just think, you know what? Actually, I put in a lot more hours, and I had the big ideas for the company, and that $2.5 million that I left with, it would really belong to me anyway. I'm telling you, it makes sense to them. It really does make sense to them. Well, you know, she didn't really love her husband, and he never really loved her, and, you know, I loved her. Okay, some people call it an affair, but, you know, we really loved each other, and I just got her out of a bad marriage. I didn't abuse that guy. Do you understand? It's not right. But it will help you begin to process, don't take your own revenge. Don't take it to your hands. If possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. This is not peace at any price. This isn't glossing over the truth. This isn't compromise. This says, if possible, if there is a way, if there's a common ground, live at peace. Do not take your own revenge, my beloved, literally, or my friends. And then here's your line. Okay, you ready? This is the part you need. Get your little pencils out. Get your pens out. And circle the phrase, but leave room for God's wrath. You get to be God, or God gets to be God. You make the choice. If you're God, you have all the weight, all the responsibility, all the stomach acid, all the unresolved issues, all the anger issues, all the things it does to you physically, all the things it does to you emotionally, and all the future relationships that will ruin. If you want to go that way, go ahead. Or you can supernaturally respond to evil. You're not going to pay back. You're going to try and understand as much as you can. And then you're going to release them. And you're going to say, you know what? God is absolutely loving, forgiving, merciful, and just. And every person will stand either in this life or in the next. No one gets a raw deal. And the definition of justice is, the core term is retribution. We don't like that. You get retributed for good, and you get retributed for bad. That's why Jesus had to go to the cross, because the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God. If we got what we deserve, no one would stand. But I will tell you that people who have hurt you and wounded you and sinned and are evil, and people that abuse kids, and people that blow up with a bomb on them, innocent people at a bus stop, I will tell you, there is a just, eternal, sovereign, loving God, and there will be a judgment, and you don't want to be there when they get what they receive. But you know what you can do is, you rest in that. You be the judge. I turn them over to you. My job is to bless and give mercy as I've received it. Your job is to do what's right. And then he says, he gives it Old Testament passage, he says, for it's written, it's mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. You can take that as a promise. Because there's something in your psyche and something in my psyche that, you know, it's just hard to, that's a raw deal. I mean, that's a raw deal. Okay, Chip, I got it. It's a raw deal. Give me the ball. Literally, pass it to me. I'll take this shot. It's a raw deal. It's a raw deal. It's a raw deal. Here you go, Lord. And he catches it and says, this is a slam dunk for me. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. In the right way, at the right time, with full knowledge of the entire situation, with the thoughts and motives laid bare before. There's other stuff you don't even understand. I'm operating in the world now. My desire is to extend mercy and to forgive and to love. And I've poured out my wrath on my son Jesus, not only for the sins that he committed against you, but the ones you committed against other people. But I will bring about justice. Pass me the ball. From this day forward, I'll take care of it. And then he says 2 compelling reasons why personal retaliation is prohibited. And by the way, where you circle that phrase, personal retaliation, don't get confused here. Sometimes we get oranges and apples, and someone breaks into your house. And you say, oh, wait a second, I'm not supposed to take my own revenge. Chapter 13 of Romans says, legal issues, government issues, civil issues, God has placed people to take revenge and bring about justice now. This is personal attack. This passage is not teaching that, hey, let's reward murderers. Let's bless those who persecute us. Let's buy them condos. Or, you commit murder or you steal from people. I'll tell you what, we got new cars for you out back because we want to. No. This is about personal attacks on your person, not legal issues, civil issues. The government holds the sword and will bring about justice in civil affairs. But 2 compelling reasons why personal retaliation is prohibited. The first one is because it usurps God's role as judge. It usurps God's role as judge. Vengeance is his responsibility. So God says, don't do it. If you do it, you're in my way. And for some of you, that sort of counterintuitive logic will really help you. The longer you hold on to this, you're in God's way. You want them to get what God really wants to give them? Or do you want to keep messing around with this? The second is personal retaliation is an ineffective means of peace. It almost always escalates. Retaliation is like fighting fire with a hose filled with gas. It only adds to the fire. Well, he makes this outlandish summary. He says, on the contrary, if your enemy's hungry, feed him, do good. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. In so doing, you will heap burning coals on his head. Now, unlike what most of us would like this to mean, this doesn't mean if you're really, really nice to him, God's going to slam dunk him. He's going to take the ball and the person. And no, that's not what it means. In the ancient Near East, there's a commentator has a great word on this. I think Clausen is his name. And he talks about in the ancient Near East in a tribe when someone was repenting and understood that they were wrong, is they would go into the village and they would build a fire, and they'd build a fire and there would be coals, and they would take a pot and they would take coals from the pot, coals, and put it in the pot, and they took a towel, and then they took the towel with the pot and they put it on their head and they would walk through the village. And as they walked through the village, they're saying, I'm burning out of my mind the way I used to think. I was wrong. I was wrong. Let me give you the picture of how this works. I played college basketball, and we had a fellow on our team who was a Vietnam vet who was decorated in terms of, he came back sort of a hero. He had a scar from here to here all the way through, was really shot up, a lot of trauma. He had a tremendous, was in prison. I think he got out, I don't know all the story, but he'd been in prison once or twice. Then he went to Vietnam, and he was about 6'6", 6'7", maybe 6'8", and had a vertical leap of probably somewhere between 40 and 46 inches. It was, literally there was times I thought the guy was going to hurt his head on the rim. But because of all the trauma, the reason he was playing at this little school instead of a big school is he had terrible hands. And sort of the neuromuscular, so, if you threw him a really hard pass, some of them he caught, and some of them sort of slipped through his hands. And, sometimes I'd watch him, he'd go for a rebound, he'd get it in his elbows by the time it got down. But, no one else was up there so he could get it. And his name was Jerry. And Jerry had been through a lot. His description is, I'm an evil man. And he wasn't kidding. He was an evil man. And he found out I was a Christian, and something happened along the way. He hated Christians. He hated Christians. And so, there's 4 girls to every guy on our campus. I made a commitment to be sexually pure, and Jerry finds out about this, and all I can tell you is, some of you men know the level of dialogue in a locker room. And he just sliced me and diced me from morning to noon to night and said things about me. And this was, I've kind of grew up playing hoop in the playgrounds and inner cities, so this was not a black-white issue at all. And in fact, I usually have been one of the few white guys on most of the teams I've played on, which has been really great. And so Jerry, though, he had this chip. That's what he called me, chip. Chip. And he would say things like in front of all the guys, so you not getting any, huh? Because you're one of them you Christian little white boy. And then he would just, egg me on and on and on. And it's just said things that I could never, ever, ever repeat. But attacks on your manhood, anything you can imagine. And he was an amazingly intelligent guy. He was an amazing artist, really gifted. And he had everyone fooled into thinking he was this reformed guy. He was the biggest drug dealer on the campus. And the fellow who was across the hall from me, my room was here, and the room was here, and I was going to my room, and the door opened, and, this is, the early 70s. Everyone's smoking dope and everywhere, and everyone's sleeping with everybody, and I guess it still goes on a lot, but, it was just crazy. And so the door opens, and all this, bluish smoke comes out, and I walk through, and Jerry sees me, and I get to about here on my door, and I get this, and this guy literally puts me up against the wall. He understands he's on probation. You know, the story is he's this reformed guy. And I mean, his hands were like this big. And he looked at me and he said, Chip, I understand you saw what you saw, but if what you saw ever is communicated to anybody, I'll kill you. And I've killed a lot of people, and one more wouldn't make a bit of difference. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean, I understood. I mean, I'm a freshman. and you know, this guy, this was, you know, there's times where you think people are bluffing. I mean, he ain't bluffing. And I remember deciding, one, I'm scared to death. And it was my first experience with the word hate. I don't mean dislike, annoyance. I mean hate. I hated him. I had anger fantasies. And I thought of things to do to hurt him. And he was really big and I was really small. So none of those really. And so the only thing I could do, my hero was Pete Maravich. So I could really handle the ball and I did all that jazz. And so in warm-ups and stuff, I would come and I'd throw a pass like that as hard as I could, or through my legs or behind the back. Bang, right here. And I knew it slipped through his hand. Boom, right in his face. You know? Evil, evil. And you know, what are you going to say? You're on the break, he's the guy, bam, right through your legs. It bounces off his chest, out of bounds in practice. And Jerry, come on. The coach gets on him. I'm going, I just love it. And it didn't really help things. And I had a very godly guy in our campus ministry named Jerry, another Jerry, ironically. And Jerry opened up Romans chapter 12, and he read verses 14 to 21, and he explained it to me. And he said, Chip, evil for evil will just escalate. This is the greatest opportunity in your life to demonstrate the reality of Jesus. You say you love him. And this is what I want you to do. And he began to describe what good for evil would look like. And I mean, Jerry was, you know, Chip, get my bag, because freshmen have to carry that. Chip, get me some more Coke. You know, I mean, I was like his slave. I hated it. And I remember deciding, not because I felt anything, because my confession is, there were windows of time, seriously. If I had a gun and he walked in the door, I'd shot him. I hated it. I mean, it was eating me up. And so I made a willful choice, and it was hard, but I just decided, oh, Jerry, I got your bag. I'll put it on the bus for you. Jerry, you need any more drink? I got some more for you. When Jerry went to the showers, all your stuff would be there, and we'd put it in the laundry and put it in a little bag, and the trainers would take care of it. I took his stuff, put it in the bag, dropped it off for him, then I took his clothes and I folded them and I put them next to his shoes. What's happening here? Who did that? Chip. What are you up to? You trying that Christian stuff on me? I said, no, Jerry, just want to help out. No more behind the back passes in his face. Hey, Jerry, nice job. A little pat on the rear end when he made a good play. Now, I'd love to say that, 3 weeks later, dear Jesus, forgive me, I'm a sinner, and Chip is such a wonderful person. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Little by little, he kind of took it off. We got to the end of the year, and we played in a big tournament. We were downtown, and we're walking, he and I, and he stops at a corner, kind of a windy. You know something? I wanted to say, what? But I didn't. He said, there's only two people I respect on this team. Me, because I'm evil and I know it, and I'm on my way to hell, and I'm going to burn if there is one. And you. I disagree with every single thing you say and believe. But if I was ever in any way going to be a Christian, I'd say I'd want to be one like you. He said, I'm done messing with your mind, kid. I'll leave you alone. And I said, thanks, Jerry. I really appreciate that. And I prayed, and I blessed him. And God took away my anger. And God gave me a love for him. And I wish there was a happy ending. I really never knew what happened to Jerry. I heard about a year later that he got picked up on a drug situation and went back to prison. I don't know how it ended. I want to tell you, however deeply you've been wounded, whoever hurt you, lied to you, betrayed you, walked out on you, our 12 Christians supernaturally respond to evil with good. And good is more powerful than evil. and you can bless them by his power and grace. And my question is, with that person in mind right now that you started with, what is it God wants you to do? Have you ever fully, completely start with forgiving the choice today? And then ask, is there any way possible to do good to those that have done evil to you? And you will be sons and daughters. You will be like your Father who's in heaven. And the world will know. God sent his Son, Jesus. Because it won't make any sense. There's no explanation for what you're doing than that God has done something so radical in you that you would be like his Son to those who will know in the depth of their soul that your present treatment doesn't correlate with their actions and behavior toward you.